Ryan Sauer, Director and Founder of Search Online Consulting. Welcome to the Red Zone.
Thank you for having me.
Now, Ryan, the online space is still quite a grey area in South Africa. There's huge education gaps, etc. What is Search Online Consulting and other digital agencies out there? What are they doing to open the education and let people know exactly what they can and can't do?
I think what's happening in the digital space at the moment is it's still quite new, especially in South Africa, and marketing directors and people in senior positions are struggling to understand all the acronyms we like to throw around in the industry. So there's a lot of education needed at that level. We need to start with foundation stuff first and then try help people understand the medium a little bit better than they do. So it's going to be a process, especially with people that have been in positions for a long time.
Now, we all know we are ingesting information now on 2, 3 or even 4 screens. When or do you think the mobile platform will become our main screen?
It's an interesting debate that everyone's throwing around, also in the States and obviously locally. I don't know if we'll ever move into a one-screen type of communication channel. I think it'll always be multiple screens. So it'll be mobile devices, and then we'll use our cell phones to communicate what we're seeing on television, what we're hearing on radio, and using multiple channels, 3, 4, 5 screens even. And we can't even comprehend what is to come in the next 5 to 10 years with the devices that we're currently using.
Now, your opinion is that hardware plus software plus access equals success. Can you tell me a bit more about this?
I think in the South African space, we get caught up at looking at one area. So we think just mobile, and then it's about hardware. So what devices do we have access to? And are South Africans on smartphones or like basic analog phones? And then we start thinking about access. So how cheap is internet accessibility? And then we start thinking about software. What are we developing for our local market? But very few agencies and very few companies are putting all of that together and saying, how do we make sure that we have the right device that's cheap enough for the masses, with the right software that people can access and understand for a local market, and then letting them have access to it in terms of 3G or internet connectivity to actually use it. And that is where we're struggling in the mobile space in South Africa.
Once again, it's strange but true, but the app development industry or space in South Africa is not really taking off as fast as we had probably originally hoped. Why do you think that is?
It's a mixture of factors again. I think that it will come. It's definitely happening overseas in first world and developed countries where connectivity is very cheap and the devices are very cheap. But the app development space at the moment is very expensive, and the amount of people that are educated in the software technologies needed for iOS, which is Apple, or Android, which is the Android platform, or BlackBerry, is very limited. And so we're trying to grapple with the native app development space at the moment. It'll take a while.
Now, response web design, what is it and how does it work?
Okay, responsive web design is something that's quite new and is for some reason synonymous with the new HTML5, which will be quite common as a development platform for web, but it's not necessarily linked. But responsive web design is making sure your website or your web presence is easy to view on any device, whether it's a tablet, a phone, a screen monitor, a laptop monitor, that the device or the content will render uniquely for each device regardless of its size. And that way the user can consume that information in a very, very easy way.
And where does the digital divide come in here?
Well, the digital divide is part of this, but also slightly separate. So what we're expecting is that in South Africa, a lot of our users don't have all the technologies and don't have all the devices, which means that they're finding it hard to consume data on a small little BlackBerry screen when the website has this huge scroll left and right and up and down function. So users are finding it difficult to get the knowledge and information they need to expand their base, and that's potentially what's keeping South Africa a little bit behind the rest of the developing world.
What do you feel will ultimately grow the mobile industry in South Africa?
Cheaper access. Cheaper access. If we can get our data rates are plummeting because of the amount of undersea cables that have been laid and the fact that the cost per megabyte and gigabyte is dropping. And as that becomes lower and lower, our internet access will increase substantially to hopefully half the population, which will mean that education will grow, which will mean that usability will expand, which will mean that usership expands. And that'll be fantastic for us going forward.
Let's hope that cheap data comes sooner rather than later. Ryan, last little question. Any trends in the digital space that you think are going to be the most prevalent?
In the South African space, I love to watch the American space. or any first world country really. I think that we are truly just 2 or 3 years behind them continuously. Some things have proved interesting. We are definitely a mobile nation, and we're definitely a mobile continent. So we've got to focus on cell phones. We've almost skipped the whole age of laptops for that marketplace. So they are moving on to smartphones, and they are consuming data in a very different way than we were 2, 3, 4 years ago. And we've got to start planning for that. We've got to start planning for the youth, for people in schools. And I think the next big space is going to be education on mobile going forward.
Ryan Sauer, thank you for being our first vodcast for 2013.
Thank you.